Well, welcome back to another video. A special welcome to the new subscribers that have just subscribed to the channel. I appreciate it. I hope you enjoy what you're seeing here. Let's jump into this. We have another kind of get it running assessment generator type video. Now, I kind of feel that the purpose of these, get it running videos is kind of lost on a few people. Primarily, what I want to do in this type of video is have an old generator, such as this one. This is what we're going to be looking at. Say you found it at a swap meet or on Craigslist or something like that, or it was given to you. I just want to take you through the steps that I go through in order to look the unit over, assess it, and determine really whether it's worth putting any money or time into. These old units, like this thing was given to me really, so they don't have a very high value as they sit like this. It's pretty much scrap iron. This one I think is going to be closer to scrap iron than most. I think it's got some serious issues. But we're gonna go through that together and see if we can't get it to run, and if we can't get it to carry a load. Once we know that it runs and it carries a load, then we can determine whether or not it's worth putting money into, or any significant amount of money into, to make it a reliable gen set that you might use in a place of business or at your house, around the farm, anything like that. So that is really the point of this style of video, and it's supposed to be entertaining as well. So let me take you down off the tripod, and we'll go around and we'll take a close look at this thing, and before we dive into it. All right. Okay, let's take a closer look at this piece here. So this is a 15 kilowatt generator set. It's 120, 208, 3-phase. It is not reconnectable for anything else. 120, 208 is what you get. It's a Kohler built unit. Has a Waukesha 180 GKB, if I'm not mistaken. We'll take a look at the tag in a second. But let's take a slow walk around. We'll start with the this side, the carburetor side. We got a unit that is dual fuel set up. Really, I guess tri-fuel is what people like to call it. We've got a vapor fuel system here, our demand regulator and solenoid valve, a load block right ahead of the gasoline carburetor. So this thing could easily be operated on propane, natural gas, or gasoline. So that's a nice feature. And you can kind of see it's a bit ugly. It's an old unit. I don't know the exact year on this thing. I think it's sometime in the early 60s production, based on a couple of little clues, which I'll show you in a little later in the video. Move around here to the back. See, we're missing the cover for the control cabinet. Got a pretty basic metering package here, voltage and current. Meters are a little rough there. Our selector switch to display the voltage and current for each line. Engine hour meter, 516.9. High and low switch, I'm assuming this is for battery charging, starter battery charging. Odd that there's no charging amp meter. Stop, hand crank, and start. This is a remote start capable plant, so stop is technically remote. Hand crank is obvious, and then start would be electric start. And over crank reset. Looking pretty original in the control box, which is always good. A little dirty. There's little covers for those meters. Pretty original. This is a transformer regulated unit. So we've got 3 compounding transformers, 1 for each phase. That'll help with voltage regulation. Big starter solenoid there. and cut out. Is that a fuse, or is that a resettable breaker? Well, it's probably a thermal breaker. Interesting. So here's the first clue on the date. On the back of the overcrank limiter, there's a date there, January of '60. So sometime in the early '60s, I imagine this unit was put together. Move on to the other side. Magneto ignition, got a Fairbanks Morse mag there, oil filter, and gasoline fuel pump. One nice thing is we've got timing information for LPG, propane, natural gas, and gasoline, and valve clearances. Timing specs for LPG and natural gas are the same. No surprise there. Pretty rough looking. Man, that may be the original oil filter. Hard to say, really. Took a big hit there at some point. Looks like we got a low oil pressure cut off. Nice to have. Oil pressure gauge. No temperature gauge, though. Front radiator. It's dripping some coolant. Left a puddle in the garage last night. I think the coolant hoses on it are original, so I'm not surprised that. Hopefully the radiator's not damaged. So, let's take a look at the generator tag. Maybe some of the Kohler fans out there can clue me in on the exact year. It's a 15R882. Serial number is 230534. 15 kW, 12208, 1800 RPM. Yeah, it's a Waukesha 180 GKB. Okay. Well, I don't know if I mentioned this already, but it's locked up tight. It does not turn at all with the hand crank. So we're gonna have to dive into this engine and determine what's got it frozen up. I pulled the dipstick already, and what's down here is not a good sign. Right. So, either rainwater down the exhaust or an overheated engine. Well, I'm going to go with an overheated engine based on the looks of this paint here at the top of the block and on the cylinder head. Yeah, you can see down low it's kind of got that classic Kohler blue underneath all the dirt and rust. But right on up here near the top of the block, that Kohler blue's turned to black and it's flaking off. So pretty sure this thing was overheated at some point. Maybe not. Maybe it's scrap metal. Well, we're gonna find out. If the engine's to the point where it's gonna cost a certain amount of dollars to repair, then it's scrap iron. So I think the first thing I'm gonna do is power wash it, get the dirt and grit and grime off the engine, so we're not working on all that when we try to disassemble it. Alright, stand by. Alright, well, it's looking a little bit better now. Not so packed with grease and dirt anymore. We can kind of get a little bit of a better idea what we're working with. Also, I apologize if I'm repeating myself here throughout these videos. Understand that this is unscripted, and I'm pretty much just, flying on the seat of my pants here with this with the work that I do. I don't really have a plan for this particular generator. I do not really have a purpose for it or a reason to get it running, other than it's enjoyable to me to work on this old equipment and see what would be required to get it to run again. I realize also that, thinking back, my comments in the beginning of this video may have seemed a little, cynical, maybe you could say. If you want to purchase, an old generator and work on it like I do for the fun of it, have at it.
these old units, I don't expect everybody to get an old generator, fix it up, make it perfect, and put it in service. And I don't think you should expect that out of this video either. If I get this generator running and making power and carrying a load, that's great. I'm not going to rebuild this engine. If this engine needs the crank turned down or the cylinders bored out or any excessive work, I'm just not going to do it. I don't have a reason to do it. This is a fun project to see if we can make do with what we got. So let's drain that oil pan out and see what's in there. See if we have water or coolant or a mix. Judging by the thick soup that's in there, I'm thinking this thing went low on coolant or overheated for some reason, blew a head gasket, and ran for a time after that while admitting coolant into the crankcase, and that's how it got so mixed up like it is now, so thoroughly mixed. So let's drain that oil pan. Alright, I got a shallow drain pan under there. Let's, and I've already loosened the drain plug. Let's take a look and see what we got in here. Oh, that's probably coolant there. Yeah, I'd say that's coolant. That's gonna make a mess. Oh my goodness, it's mostly coolant, it looks like. Okay. Wow. Okay, so thinking we definitely have a head gasket failure here. Hopefully not a cracked block or anything, but yeah, that's all coolant. Okay. Well, I was kind of hoping it was going to be that thick, milky oil, and it wasn't going to want to spray out everywhere, but let me go grab a larger pan, because obviously it wants to make a big mess. Okay, now we're getting to the real ugly stuff. Yeah, that's no good. Another nail in this thing's coffin. But let's not count it out yet. We gotta get that cylinder head off and see what it looks like. We'll pull them spark plugs first and take a peek down there. Pop the valve cover and pull this pan. Well, we're now draining something that resembles oil at least. So we must be getting to the end. While waiting for that, I pulled the oil filter off, the spark plug wires and the spark plugs, and I took a peek down the cylinders. I'm not even going to try to show you guys the way the sun is in the shadows. You're not going to be able to see anything. Number 1 and number 4 look excellent. You know, very, very little wear, still clear crosshatch on the cylinders. However, 2 and 3 are completely filled with rust. Cylinder walls are rusted, the crowns of the pistons are all corroded, so thinking we got a head gasket failure between 2 and 3 there. So that would explain the coolant in the oil and the rust, of course. So the question is, did it have a slow little seep of coolant into the oil, filling up the cylinders and running into the pan, or did this thing overheat and pretty much fail catastrophically? Really don't know. Judging by that paint on the other side that was so burned, I'm gonna say it at least overheated significantly. But I think we're gonna pull that valve cover next. Well, no, that doesn't actually look all that bad. Some rust. Definitely you can tell that there was some coolant sitting in there. Some water spots. The interior of the valve cover doesn't look that bad either. Still has the protective coating on the inside of the casting. So, well, hopefully the interior of the block is looks about the same as that. Not all rusted up. All right, I think what's next here? To get to that cylinder head, take the intake and the exhaust manifolds off. Yeah, it's all gonna be all the bolt-on stuff. Intake, exhaust, fuel system. Get the might as well take the radiator off, get that out of the way, and we'll go from there. Okay, well, I've moved inside. Just getting too cold out. Got the heat going there. So a lot's been torn off since the last clip. Radiator's missing. Intake and exhaust is missing. That came off easily. Took that off as an assembly. Fan, water pump pulley, rocker cover. That's gone. I think you saw that. Rocker shaft assembly. That all came off. Thermostat housing, push rods. All the head bolts are out, so the head's ready to come off. You guys are probably going to get a better look at it than me. Let me zoom in here, and we'll find out what's under this. What these cylinders look like. There we go. That's a good shot for you. Ooh. Ah. Interesting. Oh, that must be our blow right there. Uh-oh. Uh-oh. I see big problems. Yeah, I see big problems. I'm sure. I don't know if you guys can see that from where you're at. Let's see. Oh, no, distributor's in the way, or the magneto. Okay, stand by. Let's take. Uh-oh. That's no good. That's really bad news there. And again, here. Oop. Wow. I could actually feel a difference in height there, not just the crack. I feel that this portion of the block's raised up. Probably about 1.5 thou maybe. Wow. That's bad. That's bad. Nothing here though. Well, remember how I told you that there's a point at which these things just, it's not worth putting any money into? Well, this might be it. Well, that's disappointing. You know, cylinder 4 here looks perfect, really. No ridge, crosshatch left, crown of the piston looks fine. Wow. Cylinder 1 here, now that definitely has seen some water, oops, sorry about that, water ingress. Again, no ridge, like this thing really is not even broken in yet. That is unfortunate though. If you had a mind to, I'm sure you could repair this block. The liners are probably okay. Yeah, I don't know. You could probably, I mean, if you wanted to, you could probably clean that up. The pistons are high enough up in the stroke that you could probably soak those in some of that magic rust remover and give them a little light honing. If you could get the pistons out, new set of rings, would probably make this thing run again, but not with the crack in this block here. Let's take a look at the cylinder head. Let me put you guys back on the stand. Alright, let's take a close look at the cylinder head here and see if this is going to be a salvageable part. Now, I don't want to get too in-depth in cleaning this thing, so we saw the top here, the valve area where the rocker arms would be, and not a whole lot of sludge buildup up here. The valves themselves look to be in fantastic shape. Not to make any assumptions or anything like that, but the stems, oh, that's about dead. Never mind that. Stems really look fine. There's no valve stem seals, but the exhaust valves do have rotators, so yeah, it's what you'd expect for a, it's an industrial engine burning natural gas. Definitely want to have valve rotators. Let's take a look over here. Down where the thermostat housing would bolt on, that's looking pretty ugly in there. Definitely not a lot of cooling system care was given to this poor thing. So I imagine the whole block and the whole head is full of this stuff. This kind of looks like what's in the big cat. Although what this does smell like, well, the liquid that I drained out smelled like antifreeze, so it should have had some corrosion protection. This is probably just a result of that old coolant being cooked and overheated. Let's flip it upside down and take a look at the bottom. Oops, sorry, the head gasket sealing surface. Get a good shot of that. That's where one. Let's see. That's the block. Yes, we had blows, cracks between these two, so that one looks okay. So, yeah, I mean, I don't see anything obvious as far as cracks or anything like that, but we haven't even begun to clean it. So, not to say there's no issues with it. Alright, yeah, really to make a determination on this thing, the valve's going to have to come out, everything's going to be cleaned and thoroughly inspected. Probably want to do some magnetic crack detection between the valves there. See if anything failed. I know I'm anxious to take a look at the bottom end of this thing. Pull that pan off and pop a couple bearing caps off. Maybe even let's pull out. Yeah, let's do that. So let's pop this pan off, pop some bearing caps, and see if we can get number 4 and number 1 out of their bores, which shouldn't be too easy, or I mean, shouldn't be too difficult rather. These two, they're just going to stay right there for now. And let's see what those two pistons look like. All right, let me set you guys up and we'll pull these pan bolts. Alright, so I'm getting ready to pull this last couple bolts out to get this pan down, and I thought I'd show you something interesting. Kind of well, it's interesting to me at least. I've never torn down one of these smaller Waukesha engines before, at least of this vintage. And here's something pretty interesting, I thought. It looks like we got 2 bolts here. They look like the rear main cap bolts, but they go through the bell housing. That light, yeah, light's helping you. Through the rear bell housing and up through the pan. The pan actually goes behind the edge of the block. Well, that was pretty unique. Not something I've seen before on little engines like this. Well, I'm going to pull those out and then I'll show you when we drop it. Alright, I brought you guys down low so you can get a look at that oil pan. Here's those 2 bolts that I thought were the main cap bolts. Clearly they're not, but it's very interesting setup. I believe, we'll see when we pull that pan, that these are threading into the heads of the main, the rear main bearing cap bolts, and they actually have a little screw slide in them there. So that's all that all they're doing is holding the oil pan up. It's a very interesting method. So let's pull that pan down. Only 1 bolt in the front holding on. I think we're going to have to slide it forward a bit. Bolt's a little tight. There we go. this way. Probably gotta come out toward you guys, just because the oil pickup's over there. Get this little light out of here. I should be able to weasel that out of there, right? There it goes. That's what we drained out, so no surprise there. It's not all rusted up. That side. Alright, let's take a look under here. Bring this light back in. Gonna get shaky for a minute. Some oil pickup. Dipstick, don't need that. Alright. You guys can actually see better than I can right now. I'm looking through the viewfinder. So number 1 lower rod bearing, 2, 3, and 4. They don't look all burnt up. It's really not that bad in here. It may be a pain to pull those rod caps because of how close they are to the block there, getting that one nut off. Being we can't turn the engine. But we're going to give it a try anyway. Oil pump there. Pick up. Now let's take a look at those rear cap bolts. Oh, nope, I was wrong. There's the rear main bearing cap, and those 2 odd bolts were just in those holes there. Huh, it's interesting design. Okay, let's get those pistons out. Alright, let's see if we can pop 1 and 4 out. I already have the caps off, of course. Difficult to do. Cap's not getting hung up on anything. Almost there. Okay. It's a beefy little piston. 3 compression rings, 1 oil ring. Okay. Next.
This one's a little bit difficult because the frame rail for the jet set's pretty much right where I have the hammering at. There it is. Let me pull a couple main caps off and we'll take a close look. Alright, let's take a look down these two bores. First we'll look at number 4. Yeah, some rusting down the bottom. That could definitely be cleaned up and used. Number 1, similar staining. Little bit of light surface rust down the bottom. There was all that moisture sitting in the crankcase, so you can only expect that. Let's take a look at the bearings. Well, not the bearings, the crank surfaces. So there's number 4, connecting rod journal. Not bad looking. And number 3 with the rear main bearing. Just gave it a quick wipe. There's some surface rust on the crank, some staining, but it's really, it's not all that bad. You can get a good look at number 3, one of the locked up ones. There's the center main. Get a little close in there. Definitely, sorry for the light here. I'm trying to reduce glare. Yeah, all that coolant in the oil definitely left some staining. And there's number 1 rod journal. Now let's take a look at what we got out. So first the mains, rear lower. The upper shells are still in there, but this is where most of the wear is going to be on the crank bearings on the mains. Scratching, discoloration, no surprise there. Center, again, some scratching, some discoloration, no surprise. A lot of thrust wear, but that's pretty common to see on generators. And our rod bearings are lower for number 4, upper for number 4. Pretty much junk, these bearings. Rod caps are fine. Pistons and rods themselves, surface rust on the rods, corrosion on the pistons. I'm not going to check these, but I mean, they've got some scratching, some scuffing. Scratching, scuffing, staining, pretty much what you'd expect. Oil ring is stuck. Compression rings are free though. And it's the same story with number 4. So let's cut and we'll talk about what we want to do with this end. But before we do that, let's talk about the generator. We haven't really focused on this at all. It's pretty much been the engine. Generator end, we can take a quick overview. We know that it's 12208 3-phase, and this is not reconnectable. 12208 3-phase is what you get. Of course, you can pull 208 single phase out of it, or 3 120 volt legs out of it as well. So, but it is kind of limiting as far as what you can do with it. It's a stationary field generator, so all of your output
voltage and current has to come out through the slip rings on the armature shaft or the rotor shaft. So, you know, it is a brushed generator. You know, nothing wrong with that. It looks, and you know, the slip rings look in decent shape. You know, for how many hours it has on it, it really has no wear, no appreciable wear. DC commutator, didn't even really look at that. Yeah. Probably the same story as the slip rings, no appreciable wear. If you were going to rebuild this engine, right now what we would do is, with the engine torn down to this state, would be to check the generator end very thoroughly for mouse damage or any faults to ground, things like that, any anomalous readings in the windings, things like that. Same thing up here in the controller. All of the control equipment here is, you know, fairly easily replaceable. There's not a lot of complexity here. The only thing I think I mentioned before, these transformers here, these are a custom wound transformer for controlling the output voltage of the generator. So if you were to have one of these fail or you know, be unusable for whatever reason, you'd be in a little bit of a bind. So other than that, you know, we have a couple of salvageable parts there if we decide to go that route. But also, well, I guess you already noticed, I pulled the oil pump out and the magneto as well, just to give me some better access for number 4's connecting rod cap bolts. Yeah, a couple relays, current transformers there. Again, these are not anything that you couldn't buy new if you, what are they? 75 to 5, so you could source that if you needed to. Nothing special with these relays. So, alright, well, let's pause and we'll kind of wrap everything up and see what we're going to do here. Well, this video is not going to end like I hoped when I started it. I was hoping we could get this thing freed up, change the oil on it, maybe adjust the valves, and hook it up to some propane and get it to run, and maybe even put a load on it. But we didn't end up able to do that. Really, it went the exact opposite of that. I'm going to condemn this engine for pretty much the reasons that it's not worth it for me to put any further time into repairing it. There's nothing really special about this generator set to me. If this was a diesel of the era, maybe it would be worth it, but you know, a gasoline, natural gas, propane fired generator in this size range, 3-phase only, and you know, single voltage only, 12208, it does not carry a lot of value, and especially in this state. Not that it wouldn't be a fun challenge to try to repair this block, clean it up, and make it run again, but I've got a lot of other challenges project-wise to get to rather than this one. So at this point, I'm going to say that if anybody has seen anything on this unit that they can use to repair a generator set that they have, or they want to use the generator end to bolt on to an engine that they have, they need engine components, things like that, please get in touch with me, and we'll try to make something work out. Shipping is a pain in the butt with these larger, well, these heavier objects, but things like the water pump would ship easily, magneto and such small things like that. Or feel free to, you know, stop by South Jersey and pick this thing up. I can say that it's not going to go to the scrapyard. I don't have any reason to take it right there. I have enough space that I can stick this, cover it up, and wait until somebody needs parts from it. So don't worry about that. It's not going to the scrapyard. Oh, I forgot the radiator. I don't know what the condition of the radiator's in, but that could be a really useful part. It would be a large item to ship, but definitely the radiator and generator and components. So yeah, that wraps this video up.
hope you enjoyed it. Kind of a long teardown video, and stay tuned for more. Thanks for watching.